Good afternoon and welcome to the KKCQ Farm Forum 2021. I'm Don Brinkman, along with Whitney Pittman from R&J Broadcasting, joined by Kara Hart and Don Wick from the Red River Farm Network. A reminder, if anyone has any questions during our forum, look over on that right side of your chat screen. You can type those things in and we'll see them and try to answer them as we get those. To start off the show, we're going to throw the microphone virtually over to Kara and Don over at our Red River Farm Network to start us out with some introductory comments and what they have going on. What do you have going on, Don?
Well, appreciate the opportunity to be with you, Don, and Whitney and the entire crew from R&J Broadcasting. Again, thanks to R&J for hosting the KKCQ Farm Forum. Thanks to COVID, a lot of events look a whole lot different this year. But thanks to R&J Broadcasting and your live event, we've seen an opportunity to stay connected to a lot of things locally, whether it's ball games, to meetings, to Big Iron. We've had the opportunity to work with your live event with that activity. The Red River Farm Network right now is celebrating our 25th anniversary, and we're proud to be able to be bringing the agriculture message during our past 25 years, and that would not be possible without our radio partners like what we have in Boston, Bagley, Mahnomen, Ada, really across Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota. Looking back those 25 years, Mike Hergert, John Vosicek, and Jerry Fiska founded the network with the help of the Minnesota Association of Wheat Growers back in 1995, and they laid the foundation for what we have here today. We have 4 ag journalists on our team, Kara Hart and I with you today, also Randy Coonan and Megan Overby. In addition to our radio broadcast, we produce an e-newsletter. We're active on social media and online programming as well. And we've got a great program today, but I'm going to just kind of set the stage maybe on some of the activities we're seeing on a national level, and then we'll get on with our state lawmakers here. No secret, we've got a lot of changes on Capitol Hill, a new administration. President Biden brought back former Ag Secretary Tom Vilsack, so it's Vilsack 2.0 at the USDA right now. During the past 4 years, Vilsack was the president and CEO of the U.S. Dairy Export Council. Biden said he chose Vilsack because he could hit the ground running when we deal with issues like COVID relief. Vilsack has done about 3 speeches already in a short time back at USDA with Virtual Farmers Union, Commodity Classic. He met with a school lunch organization here this week. Each time he seems to say that he's got a different Washington, D.C., it's a different USDA, and he's a different person. So it's a different time at USDA, and certainly those priorities are different. In addition to COVID, Vilsack is focused on the issue of climate change. The secretary advocating a voluntary incentive-based carbon market program. He's also talked about using the Commodity Credit Corporation for climate programs as we move forward. As you know, former Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue tapped into CCC for trade assistance or MFP payments, and now we're seeing that now coming in the Biden administration. Regarding trade, Vilsack has emphasized really the need to enforce the trade deals that we have in place. China, USMCA, of course. Vilsack's putting his team together at USDA. So far, a much more diverse USDA than we may have seen in the past. And this issue of diversity has certainly been a priority throughout the entire Biden administration. We're still awaiting folks like at our state level with the State Farm Service Agency or Office of Rural Development in the state of Minnesota. Talking to some of the folks, it may be many months before that gets to that level where we'll have those career folks, those folks named here in those positions. Also, Capitol Hill seeing changes. We'll be hearing from the new 7th District Representative, Michelle Fishbach. We have a recorded interview that'll be coming your way in just a few minutes. She's on the Ag Committee. She's a ranking member on one of the subcommittees. It's interesting to note that we had news this morning with former House Ag Committee Chair Colin Peterson. He announced today that he's partnering with a lobbying group called Combat Cell and Associates. It's a group that represents a broad spectrum of farm organizations, representing groups like from the the sugar beet industry, Minnesota corn, dairy, crop insurance, all part of Combest Sullivan and Associate client list. This firm was co-founded by former House Ag Committee Chair Larry Combest out of Texas. It's now led by one of his former staffers on the Ag Committee, and Tom also worked at USDA as well. That's Tom Sell. Colin's going to be working in an advisory role with Combest Sullivan Associates at least through the end of the year. By law, a Congress official cannot lobby until 1 year past being out of office. So come January, that may change, but right now it's serving in an advisory consulting type role. We had the opportunity to talk to both Tom Sell and Colin. He tells us that the Becker County Historical Society is in the midst of building a new facility. They're going to have his congressional office really in place in that new facility. They've got his desk and a lot of items from his office. If you ever visited his office while he was in Congress, you'll note a lot of the same things back on the walls, those kind of things. Colin also told us that he's planning to write a book, so that'll be kind of interesting to see what comes out of his 30 years in Congress. We do have new leadership in the House and Senate Ag Committees. Former Senate Ag Committee Chair Pat Roberts of Kansas did not seek re-election. Michigan Senator Debbie Stabenow is the new chair. She had that same role when the Democrats were in the majority. The ranking member is John Bozeman out of Arkansas. And on the House side, the new chair, David Scott from Georgia, and the ranking member is G.T. Thompson of Pennsylvania. So a lot of change at the helm of the Ag Committees, both in the House and the Senate. We've got some of the first Ag Committee hearings that are taking place actually this week. The topics, climate change and food security. And I think that kind of sets the stage for what DC is looking at the present time. Now, saw the headlines, the COVID bill, the COVID relief bill, this latest nearly $2 trillion package passed by the House really in the past hour or so. We're told that President Biden's going to sign off on that bill as of Friday. For agriculture, it's different than some of the other COVID bills that we've had in the past. No direct payments to producers. There is some help for some of the meat processors, like we saw here in Minnesota, that were hurt pretty tough last spring with the COVID situation. There's also some money for loan forgiveness for minority farmers. USDA is going to be paying off FSA direct and guaranteed loans for minority farmers at a level of 110%. And we're going to hear a lot happening in St. Paul this session. We got the budget numbers out last week. Went from a deficit in November to a surplus. A lot of other topics as of note in the legislature we'll hear about. We got an E15 bill moving through the legislature. On the ethanol side, the governor's Clean Cars initiative is getting a lot of attention. So a lot of things going on that relates to us in the business of agriculture. And we're going to hear more about those today. And with that, we're going to move to our first presenter, and that's Representative Deb Kiel from Crookston. We're very pleased to have Deb with us. Of course, Deb and her husband farm. She's in her 6th term in office, serving on several committees, including the Industrial Education and Economic Development Finance and Policy Committee, the Health Committee, Human Services Committee. And with that, please let us welcome Representative Deb Kiel. Deb?
You're muted, Deb.
The first rule 101, unmute yourself. Sorry. Thanks, Representative Green. I made you a senator. So anyway, thank you. Yes, this COVID-19 situation has really changed how we do things and are learning to function in this way. I think it's got its good and bad sides. And I don't know if Representative Green would agree with me, but I think while it keeps us moving, it doesn't keep us moving together, and that becomes a problem. It's really hard to have those conversations in committee when you're not sitting in committee or talking to someone after a session, maybe agreeing or disagreeing. It's really important to have those conversations. So I find that really challenging. As Don suggested, I serve on industrial education and economic value. We have worked more in industrial education. had a conversation today about helping the 49ers are backing a program helping students to high school students going into technical classes to learn the different construction opportunities that they could have, whether it's not just construction in wood house building, but also in iron excavating, learning how to drive those big vehicles, and learning the opportunities so that they can be certified and soon after high school be able to be employed. We really want to make sure that that's what we're doing in a multitude of areas. We've lost a lot of career and tech classes in our school districts, and that becomes a real challenge for students that are not interested in a four-year college degree. So yeah, this is the first year that I have not been in ag education or ag committee, which kind of keeps me away from what's happening in that area. I know they're working on a budget and a little concerned about while they're expanding it, where it's going. So that's kind of a stay tuned. We haven't heard what the budget will be. And so I serve in health, finance, and human services, two different committees. And in health, we're talking about maybe even continuing some of the extended issues of our COVID shutdowns and how that challenge is a challenge. And then also in human services, what we need to be doing to move forward. A little concerned about a lot of the bills because they don't have companions in the Senate. And for those who aren't aware, bills that have not been heard by either the House or the Senate, most of them, tax bills continue to go, but they have to be heard in one of the other houses. And so there's some real concerns about how much of this we're going to be able to get by. So I will move on because I think you have others that want to talk, and thank you very much for this opportunity. There's Kara, she's muted too.
Trying to not fall in the trap of talking when you're talking when you're muted. Thanks so much, and good to see everyone. Deb, I wondered, could you speak to the budget a little bit more, and what could be ahead as you move through the session?
We should talk about that. Yes, we were really thinking we were not going to have a plus in the budget, and we have a $1.6 billion plus, and a little concerned about our colleagues wanting to spend more money. There's a lot of bills coming through. We have not had targets in any of our committees, so at least any I serve in, so I have no idea what we're going to be spending money on. So we've been busy hearing bills, but not acknowledging the cost. In fact, because they're having trouble with bill writing, we're kind of behind the 8 ball, and then consequently there's no financing on many of these bills we're hearing. So I can only imagine how much money we're spending and have some real concerns about what we need to be doing there. And I firmly believe that we can live within our means and should live within our means because all of our businesses are really struggling. So.
Well, Deb, thanks again for joining, and we would encourage anyone out there tuning in to submit their questions to R&J Broadcasting via email. Just stay tuned here, or you can also comment on YouTube as well. Deb, thanks again for joining us. It's really good to have you. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
There's no way to count the number of sandwiches you've packed over the years. Hard to imagine this day would come. Yeah, there's still the same fields, the same roads, the same hard work. But now they're in someone else's hands. And you couldn't be more proud of who you're handing the farm to. No matter what the future holds, Ag Country is here to help you plan ahead.
Welcome back, everyone, to the virtual Farm Forum. I'm Kara Hart with the Red River Farm Network. Joining us next, we'll have Senator Mark Johnson. Johnson resides in East Grand Forks and is the Deputy Majority Leader in the Minnesota Senate. Johnson chairs the Redistricting Committee and serves as the Vice Chair for the Judiciary and Public Safety, Finance, and Policy Committee, along with the Rules and Administration, Civil Law, and Data Practices Policy Finance Committee. Man, that's a mouthful. You're a busy guy. Thank you so much for joining us, Senator.
Hey, Kara, thank you so much for making time to do this. It's really a great opportunity to talk to you and others.
Tell us a little bit about what's going on in the session.
Yeah, well, thank you very much again for the opportunity to be here. Yeah, it's a different session this year, of course. We've got everything is basically like this, where it's a virtual setting. I know on the House side, they've got a lot more virtual. We have a hybrid forum here, which is so unusual. You know, Representative Kiel and Representative Green would probably agree. It's a different setting when you don't have the lobbyists coming through, you don't have the constituents and the different groups like the Farm Bureau, the Farm Union members walking in your door every day, which makes it a different atmosphere around here. And quite frankly, I can't wait to see people back and inside my office and working around here. It'll be great to have that again. This year has been quite a roller coaster as well. If you remember back in November, we had a budget forecast in which it looked like we had a deficit going forward. And fast forward a few months, and typically what you'd see is a few marginal changes around those forecast numbers, and you know, being able to plan more or less around what the November forecast is. However, we went from a $600 million deficit to a $1.6 billion forecasted surplus. So that changes the dynamics and the discussion around here a great deal. What do we do with a surplus like that? Do we, you know, put that into tax cuts? Do we do major reforms? Do we increase government spending? Well, you know, Representative Green, Representative Kiel, and I are not looking for creating new programs and doing that sort of thing. We're trying to figure out, how do we make our tax policy fit the citizens of Minnesota? Well, one of the things that we want to do as a high priority for most Republicans is the Triple P money that was given out earlier. In Minnesota, that's taxable income currently. What we want to do is conform that to what the federal code is, in which that's not taxable. Well, that's going to be about a $438 million, what we call a cost to the state. So with this budget surplus, one of the things that we want to do is make sure that we make that non-taxable income, which takes quite a bit off of what the one-time money is on that surplus. So there are a number of things like that that we're working on. You know, in the district and across the state, I'm really busy in the redistricting process. Right now, what we're doing is working on figuring out, you know, what each district looks like, what the values are, what the groups are within those districts, and all across the state. So that's been actually a very fun and rewarding experience for me, is meeting with the individuals, senators and members, trying to get a feel for, well, what is Rochester like, or what is Big Lake like, and doing those sorts of things. So getting to know the state better, each district at a time. Now, the purpose of that is simply, when the time comes to draw the maps, to be able to make sure that we have very fair and transparent maps that people can rely on and are feeling very comfortable that these were fair and when they were drawn. So those are some of the things that we're currently working on, which you know, it makes, you know, once every 10 years makes us quite a challenge, because computing power is upgraded, different systems that we use is upgraded. And then also, along with that, the data that we have, what we normally have in our labs and on our computers right now is piles and piles of data that we'd be using. But as you know, or may not know, a lot of that has been delayed until first step will be April 30th. We'll know how many congressional districts we have in this state. And then not until September 30th will we really get the hard data that we can start drawing our maps with, which is very, very unusual. It probably was 1932, the last time we had a significant data issue like we do this year. So that makes my job as the chair of the redistricting committee a little bit more complex and difficult, because we have to have these maps drawn and agreed to by February 15th of 2022, which, believe it or not, is coming up extremely fast, especially when you don't have control of the data at this point. It's going to be all compressed within just a few months. So it's a challenge, but I'm very honored to have that ability to be in the position that I am, to be part of the redistricting process. So I'm really looking forward to that coming up. With that, I'm not sure if we're going to be taking questions. We can talk about a few other things that I've got on my list here. Otherwise, I'd be happy to go to questions or do what you'd like.
Senator Don Wick here. I can pull in a question or two for you. First of all, just continuing on this talk of the redistricting. Typically, this has been kicked over to the courts. What's your anticipation for this go around?
Yeah, since 1971, that's true. It has been done judicially, and that's typically the process. Our goal is to do as much as we can within the legislative process that it's meant to be done with. So our goal throughout this whole time was to make sure that we have maps that are very fair, that are very transparent, that folks can agree to. So we're going to continue to work towards that throughout this process. And at the end of the day, if it does go to the courts, it wouldn't be anything unusual. However, if we are able to get something together prior to it being February 15th, that's my goal, and I'd sure love to get there.
What are your expectations for what that means for rural Minnesota as far as representation? We always have that divide between rural and urban, and the metro and suburbs and such, as well as what happens on the federal side. Do we lose a representative in this whole situation?
That's a really good question. So I'll start with on the federal side of things. Right now, out of the 435 seats that will be divvied up across the country, our number 8 seat, so we have 8 seats in the state of Minnesota, is right at about 100 or 437 or 438. So we're about 2 or 3 seats out of the running right now and might be kicked down to 7 congressional seats. So, we can basically take the map right now and completely go from a blank slate if that happens. If we retain all 8 seats, then it's just marginal differences around the edges of those districts, and we can make our districts look pretty much the same as how they are now. There'll be some adjustments, of course, but if we do lose a seat, what that's going to look like is completely up to the redistricting process. We've got CD7, which runs all the way, which we're in over here on the western side of Minnesota, runs from Canada almost down to Iowa. Well, what would that look like if we lost a seat? Would we be going south further and then going east? I don't know. That makes sense, but that's all things to be determined. On the state level, with the senators and representatives, just by common knowledge here, the cities are continuing to get larger. There's still the housing, the growth there in the cities is going to create smaller, tighter districts in the cities area. And in rural Minnesota, where we are staying relatively flat, what the odds are and what is the typical trend is that our districts continue to get larger and larger. In my district, it's about 2.5 hours corner to corner. And I imagine in Senate District 1, what we're going to have is a longer drive after the 2022 redistricting map comes out. I fear a little bit for the interests of rural Minnesota as the urban centers continue to build strength, build on their representation. That comes at a cost when you're fixed at 67 senators, that our representation is going to start moving more and more towards those urban areas. So, what does that mean for us? Well, we saw what happened with our disaster assistance account, with the governor reaching into that to help out with the civil unrest in Minneapolis and St. Paul this past summer. That was an account that was created by rural legislators that dealt with Mother Nature and the effects of disasters, that you couldn't hold somebody, culpable for creating that disaster. It's just a fund that we used for natural disaster things. And now the governor, because of political pressure, has really reached into that and said, no, we're going to use it for this civil unrest issue too. Well, that takes away from, whether it's East Grand Forks flooding or Roseau flooding or a tornado that might hit, it takes money that was going towards those sorts of emergencies and now using it in a different form that was never envisioned to be there. So that's some of just the practical effects of losing the strength of rural representation and the political power moving more to that urban interest. So, that's just one of the things that I fear may happen. But we'll fight hard for rural Minnesota to keep the strength that we can here.
Senator, another issue that's been a real hot button, and it's not necessarily going through the legislature. It was done through executive order, going through Minnesota Pollution Control, and that's the Clean Cars initiative coming from Governor Walz. We had the chance to interview Governor Walz. He compared it to like the gun issue. It's become such a hot issue across the state. Yeah. What's your take on this Clean Cars initiative?
Well, I don't know what the governor's perspective is on this, but I know what mine is, and I know what my constituents is. This is a bad deal for rural Minnesota. Let's say you live in, East Grand Forks, and you want to go over to Rydell and buy a car and drive it home and put it in your garage. Well, you can't do that now because North Dakota doesn't follow the California Clean Air emissions standards. So you can't go over there, buy a car, and register it back in the state of Minnesota. And likewise, those people in Grand Forks that might want to go over to Lillistal's Ford in Thief River or Baros Chevrolet or Christian Motors, those vehicles are going to be, and MPCA will admit this, they're going to be about $1,500 to $2,000 more per vehicle. Well, why would I go over to Minnesota and buy a vehicle when I know I can get it right here in Minnesota and North Dakota for that much less? So there's going to be a big impact that way. The other thing is just philosophically, there's a unelected board in the state of California that's going to drive Minnesota's environmental law policy. So we no longer have the ability to determine what our emission standards are going to be. It's going to be a board out in California, which to me, it seems like, why are we delegating? I have a problem delegating our legislative authority to the agencies. I have a much bigger problem with our agencies than delegating that authority to an unelected board in California. And so people should be upset about this. This should be something that's determined by the elected representatives people send down to St. Paul. And so this has been something that we've been fighting very hard against now for the last 2 years. The one shining light that we have is that this will not be implemented until 2025. So if we are able to get an administrative change perhaps in the 2022 election, or we're able to convince MPCA that this is a bad idea before the rule goes into full effect, then we've got a chance. But right now, people should be very worried about this and talking to MPCA and the governor that this needs to go away.
There's another bill that's getting attention, and that's moving to a 15% ethanol blend. Currently, Minnesota's got a 10% mandate. What's your thoughts on that particular piece of legislation?
Yeah, I don't know, since becoming the deputy majority lead and taking on my own committee responsibilities here, I haven't been involved with those discussions and talks as much. I know Senator Westrom was a big proponent of that E15 mandate. And I believe he's still pushing it at this point. I don't know exactly where he's at on that, if that's continuing to go forward. I haven't seen, I know one of the issues initially was the infrastructure in place. Were the blenders capable of doing that, of creating the output? After this year, with all the governor's mandates and emergency power mandates and things, I think we can see what the danger of mandating something like this could be. So I'm not 100% behind it. I want to see some more, just see what the data is, see if gas stations are capable of providing this, what the effect is going to be on our fuel supply right now, and whether it's economical. But like I say, I haven't been in those discussions this year.
Senator, Representative Kiel mentioned that they haven't seen the budget targets yet at the committee level. Do you have any idea when those numbers will be made available?
Sure. They should be within the next week. We should be setting those targets and making them public. Right now, it's first deadline within the Senate, within the legislative body. So we've been busy getting bills together, making sure that what we need done by the first deadline is getting done. So that's why there's been, I was a little late jumping on the call today. We're trying to get some of those bills through right now. So after it calms down a little bit this week, I think next week we'll have those budget targets out and be able to start from there.
Well, we appreciate the chance to have a few minutes of your time today. I know you're busy, so thank you, Senator, for taking the time to join us.
Oh, this has been fun. Thank you so much for inviting us on.
Thank you. Senator Johnson with us here on the KKCQ Farm Forum. Next up, we visit with Minnesota Representative Steve Green from Fosston. Green is a Republican lead on the Legacy Finance Committee. He serves on the Environment and Natural Resources Finance and Policy Committee and the Property Tax Division. With that, we're going to be joining him in just a second. We have a quick break and then we'll return with more.
Community Co-op provides energy solutions. Farm fuels, lubricants, propane, and natural gas are all available to farms, homes, businesses from Community Co-op. They enjoy working with their customers to meet your fuel and energy solutions. Call Community Co-op today, 1-888-935-2281 for farm fuel pricing, contract programs, farm lubricants, propane pricing, and delivery for farm, home, business, and natural gas service. Community Co-op appreciates the business of all current and new customers. Community Co-op, your co-op in your community.
Again, thanks for joining us today for the KKCQ Farm Forum. Always some tremendous information going out in this particular update. We appreciate all the work that R&J Broadcasting puts into this each and every year. A little different format, obviously, this year. We're grateful to have this opportunity, though. Next up, we visit with Minnesota Representative Steve Green from Boston, Republican lead on the Legacy Finance Committee, serving on the Environment and Natural Resources Committee and the Property Tax Division. With that, a warm welcome to Representative Green.
Thank you, Don, and congratulations to the Red River Farm Network on 25 years. So when I heard that you were only on for 25 years, of course I'm old, but when I heard you're only on for 25 years, it just seems like I've been listening to you for a lot longer than that. So time goes by pretty fast. So I guess first I'll try to address the question on basically the federal government getting involved with our election process in Minnesota. The first thing I would say is I'm not even sure that it's constitutional for them to do that. These things are delegated to the states. For them to change that, I think that there might be a fight in the courts on that. Obviously, I'm not for it. We need to keep those things local. There was a little bit of talk about the budget, and so I'll try to address that a little bit, and then if there's any questions, I'll take those. The question is, with the surplus that we supposedly now have, is where did it come from, and is it going to be there into the future? And that's always that's the main question when you're setting your budgets, because in Minnesota, so many things. If you increase the spending on an item, then you have to look not only at that, but you have to look into the future and what does it mean for the coming years. And where a lot of this money is coming from, nearly $1 billion of it to start with was the fact came out of Health and Human Services, and the fact that because of the COVID, a lot of people weren't going to the doctor. So there was a savings that was realized within Health and Human Services that when that thing kicks back up, or maybe even when those people have to go in for more severe problems because they didn't get treatment, that could disappear. The other thing with this new increase is that a lot of it comes from the federal government, comes in the form of what Senator Johnson addressed previously, which was the PPP loan forgiveness, which Minnesota taxes. And so if we're taxing a one-time money to our businesses for that's not going to be there in the future, then the other is the UI. We're also taxing the increase that the federal government sent out in unemployment insurance. Now, generally, unemployment insurance is taxed, and so you'd think that there's nothing wrong with that. The problem is this came in extra, and so there's going to be a huge hit to our families who were on this unemployment, that now when they file their taxes this year, they're going to be paying in on their unemployment insurance because there was no withholdings. And that's going to affect the economy and certainly going to affect the money coming into the future. So the surplus that we're seeing, I've been telling people to be very cautious as to how we spend this money. Ideally, I would like to say this what was not taxed, it was sent there to boost our economy and to give these families and businesses a break. Minnesota should not be taxing this money in the first place. And that takes what'll that do to our surplus? What'll that do to our targets? And these are all questions that we have to answer. And I wonder if the budget targets aren't coming out as soon as possible, because there are bills right now to deal with how this is going to be taxed. The other thing on the Ag Committee, I served on the Ag Committee in previous years, but I didn't get on this year because of a conflict in scheduling, and I really missed that. When I was on there, we saw a lot of the very slim budgets that we already have in Minnesota Ag go to what's called urban farms. And so they're going to like community garden type things that are in the urban areas. And these dollars are desperately needed for the few things that we do for Minnesota. And the way it looks to me, the same thing is happening in that committee this year. I haven't been able to follow it as closely, but I will keep up on that. But we have to make sure that we maintain the policies that we've had in the past and some of the programs that we've had, especially in the area of counseling. A little bit was addressed on the California cars. I think that Senator Johnson covered that pretty good. A lot of people weren't aware that you couldn't just go across the border and buy a car there and be okay. But that's just not going to happen. They're not going to allow that. But it brings up something that I've been working on for many years and trying to make people understand that we have a rulemaking process in Minnesota that is very dangerous to our freedom and to the way that our laws are made. I don't think it's been shown quite as in your face right now as we see, not only with the education policies coming forth on the social studies programs that we hear about, but also now the California cars. These are things that have to go through the legislature and be vetted so that the people of the state can have their say. When they're working through committees and just doing it through the rulemaking process and bypassing the legislature, the governor and his commissioners are calling all the shots. And then one last issue is, the governor's emergency powers. We voted again yesterday and today to try to remove those, and we're still getting pushback from the majority in the House that they don't want to do that. I have a personal view on that, and one of that is that if the money comes through with the federal government on this next stimulus, the governor will have complete control over that money. And so if he can keep the emergency powers going, then the legislature will have no say into where that money goes, and it'll end up being kind of another slush fund for the governor. I think I've touched on most of the things that I was going to talk about. The one thing that I would like to end with before questions is if we're seeing on the redistricting we've been talking for years that we may lose a congressional seat. I'd like to make a plea to the farmers, and they might think this is a joke, but it's really not. I've seen over the years that they plow up a lot of old homesteads, a lot of farm sites to gain a few acres. I really hate to see that, because I think it would be better to either sell off or rent off a 5-acre parcel with a house and try to get some families back out here. We need to think into the future, because if our district lines start moving further to the east, our farming communities are going to lose a lot of representation.
Representative Green, thank you so much for your time. This is Kara Hart with the Red River Farm Network. Good to see you. Just some follow-up questions from what you had to share with us there for a minute. You talked about making the rule making process, the need to make that a little bit more fair. What do you see as the path forward in improving the process?
Rules? Well, I have a bill that I've had for many years. I just testified on it in the Senate, if I can get a bill in the House. And what it would do, it was first of all narrow the structure, so that an agency can't just go back in time, find an old law and say, we're going to make a rule based on that old law. They have to have specific reasons for that rule. They have to show you exactly where it comes from. And then they have to bring it to the legislature and say, this is where this rule came from, and here is our authority. And the legislature then would be able to either stop it if it's not right, or allow it to move forward. I do have other ideas, and one is that we take away the rulemaking authority except for expedited rules. An expedited rule is only good for 18 months. And after that, when those rules come forward, the legislature can either codify them into statute or they can go away. We've got a stack of law books that is probably pretty close to 4 feet high if you stack them on edge. We have a stack of rules, books of rules that have been made just by the agencies and only signed by the governor, as only about 8 inches shorter than that. And all these are laws to our people, and it's laws that are made outside the process. They're made by unelected people, and there's no really recourse for the people to go to except the legislature to try to change a rule, and that can be very difficult.
Thank you. Are there other pending rules that we should be aware of, especially with your work in the Environment and Natural Resources Finance and Policy Committee? This should be on the radar for farmers and ranchers maybe we didn't talk about.
There's always rules coming forward. You have to constantly watch what's happening within the drainage systems of your farms. Also with our cities, that'll affect that too, with their sewer systems. But they're constantly changing the rules. They are also they look at new data, and if you watch the data, and I do watch it very closely in our rivers and streams, we're actually doing very well. If you look at the amount of even nitrates that are going into the rivers now is way down. They won't tell you that, but if you look at the graphs, that's what it shows. And so and now they're starting to do their measurements on parts per billion instead of parts per million, which makes it look more excessive. But we're doing a good job. We need to keep touting that. But always watch your rules coming forward on your water, especially now with the reversals that might be coming from the feds on the Waters of the U.S. Act. We could be right back in the same mess we were.
Yeah, thank you. And circling back to some of that COVID relief, that pending COVID relief you talked about, in the sense of how it's implemented, do you think that's something that could be seen this session, or will this require a special session later on to maybe address?
Are you talking about
the House passed COVID relief package from today?
Well, right now, as I understand it, and if there's somebody else on that can contradict me, I'll sure take that. But when I read it and the way I understand the way the law reads, as long as the governor retains his emergency powers because of COVID, when that money comes in, he will have access to it. If we can't reverse those emergency powers or get him to give up some of them, then he will have discretion over where that money's spent. So that, as we've seen in the past, that could be not so helpful for Greater Minnesota. As far as a special session, we would still have to be able to remove those powers.
What's underway to move forward in something like that?
Well, we have brought up probably at least 14 times now in the House. The majority party refuses to take away the powers that the governor has. Worst case scenario, he could keep them to the election, and then hopefully the people of Minnesota would make that choice. Right now, I think the Senate would be an easy pass in the Senate to remove those powers. The narrative has been that if you remove the powers, all the protections go away, and that's simply not true. What it would do is it would put the power back into the hands of the legislature where it belongs. Yes, there would be debate, but the people in Greater Minnesota's voice would be heard instead of only hearing the views from the metro area and one person basically calling all the shots.
Thank you. Is there anything else you'd like to add? Did we miss anything? And also, I would encourage anyone out there tuning in, if you've got questions, we'd sure love to hear them. Representative, anything else you'd like to add in the meantime?
I think we probably touched on most of it. Looking at my list here of notes, and I think that I've got it, and I don't want to burden you if no one's got any questions.
Well, I'm not seeing anything come through, but thank you again so much for joining us today. It's been nice to have you. Thank you all for tuning in. Again, we've been visiting with State Representative Steve Green. You are tuned in to the 2021 Virtual Farm Forum. We'll be back after these messages.
This is Chris from RDK Enterprises, your local planter experts. Tune up, add up. The math is simple. Every additional percentage of meter accuracy adds a bushel or two more per acre. While they should run at 98% or better, many do not. That's why no matter who made them, no matter their type, every meter should be calibrated every year. Keep your meters in top-notch shape. Call RDK at 701-636-2119 to schedule your meter maintenance today.
Welcome back, everyone, to the 2021 Virtual Farm Forum. Joining us next is Minnesota Representative Michelle Fishbach. We caught up with her yesterday. Fishbach is a member of the House Agriculture Committee and is ranking member of the House Agriculture Subcommittee of Commodity Exchanges, Energy, and Credit. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be with you today.
So to kick things off, how are things going in Washington, D.C.?
You know, they're very busy. We're doing well, though. We put together a great staff. We've got Nick, who we stole from Congressman Emmer's office. We've got David Fitzsimmons as chief of staff, and actually, I will just say we have Ben Anderson as the district director. So, and please always feel free to give us a call. But things are going very well. You know, we're having committees, and we are putting things, moving things onto the floor. Don't agree with some of the things we're doing, but we are moving things forward.
So we know the House is expected to vote on the $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan Act this week. What does this new aid package mean for agriculture?
You know, it will be, we just passed it out of rules. We got the Senate amendments back and we dealt with those in rules today, and we'll probably vote on that in a couple of days on the floor, maybe even tomorrow. But you know, there isn't as much relief for agriculture as I would have liked. I think we should have done more for ethanol. We should have done more of the direct kind of and more targeted relief. There's a lot of things that are not COVID related in the bill. And so I really have concerns. And when we are spending $1.9 trillion on something, it should be targeted and it should be actual COVID relief. And so I do oppose the bill and did on its way out, and will now that it's back from the Senate, because I do have concerns about adding that kind of money to the deficit when there's already $1 trillion sitting there that's went unspent from the last COVID relief bills. And in addition to that, you know, the president by executive order stopped the CFAP payments, and we should be putting those through. So it's not the kind of COVID relief that I think that we need to be doing right now. Like I said, lots of stuff that has nothing to do with COVID in there.
Well, and then I wonder about the already existing COVID relief that's out there that has yet to be implemented. I think farmers still waiting on USDA to implement some of that aid that was passed in December. Do you know how soon, maybe, have you got a sense in Washington, D.C., how quick that could be implemented?
No, you know, we're still waiting on those, on the meat processing. They put together the money for the meat processing in that December bill. We still don't have the regulations from USDA on that. And like I said, the CFAP payments have been stopped. So, and there's, like I said, $1 trillion of unspent COVID relief from the last bill. And so we really need to be looking at that and making sure we're expending those dollars before we put another 1.9 in.
Once this COVID-19 pandemic is addressed, we understand climate change will be a top priority for the Biden administration. How do you see this impacting agriculture?
You know, I'm very concerned about that. And we did have a climate change hearing, no legislation, but an informational hearing on the Ag Committee. I think it went 4 or 5 hours. It was a very long committee hearing. But I'm very concerned because we've got to make sure that if we're going to be doing if we're going to be imposing things onto the farmers, we need to make sure they're voluntary. We need to make sure that they are incentive based, and we need to make sure that the farmers are getting credit for what they've already done. Farmers have already done so much, and so they need to have a seat at the table and be able to explain those things that they've already been doing regarding, you know, sustainability and things like that. So that's something that I'm very concerned about, and we will continue to watch that. We don't have anything of the exact proposals yet, but we will be watching it and hopefully making some very good changes and suggestions to those.
There appears to be a lot of partisanship happening in Washington, D.C. What do you see as the path forward for working in a bipartisan way on some of these key issues?
Well, I think what really needs to happen is that the chairs really need to step up. The chair, particularly of the Ag Committee, really needs to step up and start including Republicans in what's going on, and including the the stakeholders groups. And so it's not just about Republicans having input, but it's about those stakeholders groups. It's about the farmers. It's about the Farm Bureau. It's about the Farm Union being able to have input on what's going on. And that's one thing. So far, we didn't see that on the COVID relief bill, unfortunately, that the stakeholders were really talked to about what was going on there. But I'm hoping that the chair does step up and that we get that input that we need to have.
Yes, thank you. We understand you're also the new chair of the House Agriculture Subcommittee of Commodity Exchanges, Energy, and Credit. Under that category, where do you see, the priorities for agriculture? Where will that subcommittee focus its priorities?
Well, I think one of the things is it has the broadband under that, and I will correct you. Although I would love to be chair, I'm the ranking member. But
that's right. Thank you.
Yeah. But I was going to take the title while I had it for a few minutes. But one of the things that falls under that subcommittee is broadband, and so we're very concerned about making sure that we've got broadband across the 7th District. Rural Minnesota is that if the pandemic did nothing else, it showed us the need to make sure that we have good broadband across the district, and in those rural areas. And that's good, that's good for our rural communities, our education, our healthcare. Agriculture uses the internet. And so we need to make sure that we get that done. And so that's one of the priorities on that subcommittee for me, is making sure that we are working on that. And not just, I'm sorry, not just getting it to the cities, but getting it to people's doors. And that's the challenge.
In closing comments, I wondered, what would you like to share with farmers in your home district?
Well, I'm very excited, very humbled, first of all, to be elected, and happy to be here serving the people of the 7th District and the farmers of the 7th District. And I really want to make sure that they feel free to call us and contact us if there is anything that they need or they see we could be doing better. So please, that conversation is very, very important to me. And just make sure that they reach out if there's anything, and we'll be reaching out to and making sure that we have that relationship.
Thank you. Once again, we've got Minnesota Representative Michelle Fishbach. I'm Kara Hart here on the Red River Farm Network. That's Congresswoman Michelle Fishbach. Thanks for tuning in. Stay tuned. We've got more after these messages at the 2021 Farm Forum.
First National Bank in McIntosh is a locally owned and operated bank with a tradition of service to agriculture and has been financing agriculture since they first opened their doors. So when you need money for operating expenses, livestock, machinery, or real estate, the First National Bank in McIntosh has the knowledge, experience, and financial resources to meet your needs. Hometown banking with First National Bank in McIntosh, member FDIC and equal housing lender. Welcome back to the KKCQ Farm Forum here. We've had Red River Farm Network joining us here to introduce several of our speakers today and thank them so much for joining us today and helping us out I'm Whitney Pittman. I don't know if you've seen my face yet here on today's broadcast, but I will be introducing Mike Skaug. Mike Skaug is the Vice President of the Minnesota Soybean Growers Association and as the Chairman of the Ag Innovation Campus. He'll be giving us an update, of course, over in Crookston. Construction will be getting underway, and he'll talk about that a little bit here in just a minute. Mike's presented here today by West Central Ag Services, and we'll get that update from Mike Skaug.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for being and for letting me have this opportunity. My name is Mike Skaug. My wife and I have a family farming operation near Beltrami, Minnesota, and I'm currently the board chairman of the Ag Innovation Campus that we refer to as the AIC. The AIC is a specialty crush facility that has the ability to extract oils from all plant types. This business was founded by the Minnesota Soybean Growers Association, Minnesota Soybean Research and Promotion Council, and the Ag Utilization Research Institute. The vision of the AIC is to serve as an incubator for agriculture innovations with a goal to foster new and novel products, create jobs, and increase the value of agriculture in the region and the state. And our vision will then be to host a variety of private and public groups within agriculture to provide both the tools and technology to expand value-added agriculture products while offering campus suitable for real-world learning, both in production agriculture as well as technology serving the campus. This past October 28th, we had a groundbreaking celebration on the future site of the Ag Innovation Campus that will be located in Crookston, Minnesota. We had invited guests, which included the Minnesota Governor Walz and area legislators from Northwest area of Minnesota. And we wanted to use this opportunity to show our appreciation to them, the Minnesota legislature, for awarding us a $5 million grant for the startup capabilities of this new venture. We also had many dignitaries and others, community people from the community interested in the project. And we just had a great time in celebrating and kicking off this great new venture. So the revenue from the project are going to be in the first full year of operations, we're expecting to have revenues of $27.8 million, and we're projecting expenses of $27.35 million with a modest profit of $450,000 derived from first year of operations. So by the numbers, we'll employ at the peak about probably 60 jobs, processing and office management jobs, and then we're going to run in the processing portion of the facility 3 crushing lines so that we can preserve the identity of specialty oils that are derived from plants. And said before, we were awarded the $5 million grant for a startup for facility. This picture shows the interior of the building, and it shows the driveway that is going to be used inside so to serve the processing facility, and then on the other side will serve entrance for those that will be in our research laboratories. So the building will encompass about 67,000 square feet. Of that area, about 16,000 square feet will be devoted to the crush processing facility. And then we're hoping to rent out the remaining spaces for those that are in industry that are interested in in the services that we can provide, and we'll have probably revenue of $450,000 from rental space of offices and research laboratories. The processing facility for the campus will have the capability of processing 62,000 tons of soybean meal a year in a 324 days of operation. This will equate to about 2.5 million bushels of soybeans that we'll crush during that period. The AIC, we registered it with the state of Minnesota as a 501c3 not-for-profit. This will make the campus easier to access industry grants. And in the future, we'll be able to award grants to others in the industry that are willing to or need to use our services from the facility. And this will also allow all the profits from the operations to be reinvested back into the AIC. This photo depicts the viewing gallery that we're planning to have down through the center of the building. This gallery will be open for the public, and people will be able to use the kiosks that will be available in here to describe some of the operations that are going on, so they can view and educate themselves or students around the area. One side would be the laboratories. They'll be able to view what's going on, the activities with the research labs. And then the other side, they'd be able to watch the crushing facility in operations, and so they can witness what's going on there. So the campus will be a foundation for the future. We'll have visitor-friendly observatories. We'll have hands-on training for those students that are interested in pursuing a career in the industry. So the campus will be the first crush plant dedicated to being the first facility in the world to purchase and sell soybeans based on amino acid values. We'll have 10 research bays for innovative ag research, multiple classrooms available, regional agriculture educational centers, and we'll have a conference room with the ability to host 100 people. And so I think this would probably conclude my report. Is there any questions that you would have, Whitney?
Yeah, so making sure, yeah. I know construction was hoping to get started here this spring. What is the timeline looking like on that? I know in huge projects like this, a lot of times setbacks are just sort of the norm and to be expected to an extent, but where are you at with, the groundbreaking and starting the progress on getting this thing built?
Yeah, we've been pretty cautious as to putting some timelines on because, there's so many disruptions with the economy now with COVID and other things that are happening. So, but the good news is that the processing equipment, we get a weekly report from the company that's doing all the work on the processing equipment, and that's on schedule. The reports are very favorable. The other thing is that we have our civil engineering is still working on some of the things there. Our site engineer is working on some of the things, continuing to work on that, and the architect is currently working on the building. So we're going to be getting a lot of things finalized, and then from that point we can just move on to the next step.
Awesome. And I know you kind of talked about it a little bit. This is a huge learning facility. I'm sure relationships with University of Minnesota Crookston and things like that are really excited to see this come together.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome thing. You know, during the groundbreaking ceremony, or even I should say back to when we were lobbying for the grant money, many of the it was the kind of the tone in the Capitol that this was a spirited idea and a bold move forward. And you know, that type of tone was in the Capitol about this project, and that made it come to fruition. And so we're so glad that we were awarded that startup grant in 2019, and then it was made available to us in September of 2020. So that's really got this project going off in a great direction.
Yep, and I know there's some other things happening too, or that are in the works anyway for that area that'll all tie in, and some awesome opportunities for the growers in the area, as well as, you know, the students attending campuses that are nearby. It'll be a great opportunity for learning and more business opportunities in the future, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're hoping it can really add value to an already good product with soybean oil or any type of plant that produces oil. We're eager to do any kind of research that will propel specialty products derived from plants that produce oil.
All right, and I guess that wraps up the questions that I had here. Anything else that you wanted to add quick before we let you go? A place that people can go, you know, learn more about this and maybe see some of the graphics and stuff that you guys have used here today and shown us, and somewhere they can visit to read about it if they wanted to a little bit more.
Yeah, so we're sharing a website so far with Minnesota Soybean Growers Association. So they could, anyone interested could go to mnsoybean.org and click on any links or whatever that would take you to the Ag Innovation Campus.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Mike Skaug, Vice President of the Minnesota Soybean Growers Association and Chairman of the Ag Innovation Campus. We will be right back after this quick break.
All that you see is a business that has been built for its members' success. Our history of achievements and challenges has formed what we are today. We have aligned our systems and processes for your continued growth. A company that has evolved to handle your needs today and beyond. We consider ourselves your partner in ag production, owned by you, proud to serve you in this ever-changing world marketplace. We are West Central Ag Services.
Thanks once again to Mike Skaug. That presentation was brought to you by West Central Ag Services. Again, I'm Whitney Pittman. As we wrap things up here today, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that has been on this stream today and helped make this broadcast possible. Thank you to the Red River Farm Network and Don Brinkman. Also, just wanted to talk a little bit. So I've been with R&J Broadcasting Incorporated here full-time for the last 3 years. I've worked with Don over in Boston, Tom Lano, and back in the day, Laura Hamilton. When I first started as an intern at R&J Broadcasting Incorporated, I think that was the summer of 2015. But Friday will be my final day as a full-time employee with R&J Broadcasting Incorporated. Of course, I will hopefully still get the chance to come back on the airwaves every once in a great while. I'll be taking a position with Minnesota Farm Bureau as the Northwest Minnesota Membership and Marketing Specialist. And I will be heading out on that adventure beginning Monday, officially Monday, March 15th. I'm really excited for that opportunity, but of course it's a bittersweet transition. as I will be saying goodbye to my office here in Ada that's been home for the last 3 years. Thanks to Don. It's been a lot of fun working with you guys over there at KKCQ, and I look forward to continuing to get to talk to you guys every once in a while here. But I will transition back over to Don, let you kind of give us a recap here, and Don, take it away.
Thanks, Whitney. Big thank you to everyone, like you said, for joining us today at our KKCQ Farm Forum. We thank our sponsors and our speakers for their support and time of the event. And a big thank you to Kara Hart and Don Wick at the Red River Farm Network. And lastly, Whitney Pittman, our technical director, that made this Farm Forum 2021 possible. Kara, do you have any closing comments?
Yeah, Don, thank you so much. And on behalf of Don Wick, myself, and the entire Red River Farm Network team, thank you all for including us in today. It's always fun to be a part of this forum and a virtual forum. I think it's been a very, very good information included in today's broadcast. So thanks for letting us be a part of it. Before we wrap things up, I did want to acknowledge we appreciate everyone who sent in questions. And we did get a question for Michelle Fishbach. And just know, because we had that interview recorded, we were unable to ask that question to her in person, but just know we will be getting back to you on who to contact, and we'll pass that along to you. So just stay tuned for a response to that question, likely coming back in the form of email from the folks at R&J Broadcasting. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the R&J Broadcasting team. Thank you so much for being a Red River Farm Network affiliates. We really appreciate you guys being a part of what we produce here at the Red River Farm Network. And just so you all know, you can always hear more farm news by tuning in to our Country Morning and Agriculture Today broadcasts, and also our market updates on the Fosston, Ada, Bagley, and Mahnomen stations. Again, be sure to follow along, and we hope that you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll pass it back to Don.
Thanks, Kara. And a reminder to the people that are listening, if you know anyone that couldn't make it, I know it's sort of middle of the afternoon, so some people that are working and couldn't, grab their mobile device or at their computer, we will have a link on our website, rnjbroadcasting.com. Tell them to go there and they can watch it in its entirety. Or if you missed a part, you can go back and watch the part that you missed. But thanks again to everybody. And like Kara said, enjoy the rest of your day.